My name is Cassy Summers. Welcome to the Curious Universe podcast. Welcome everyone to the show. I have a very special and magical guest on today. This is my great friend, Julie O Perkins. Thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, Cassy, it's always so much fun to play with you. So anytime you want to talk, let's do it.
Yay! We're going to talk today about one of our favorite topics, something that we, in some way, we always seem to talk about when we get together and have our chats. And it's the topic of magic.
Magic.
Such
a fun topic.
I know. I want to learn more about you, and I want the listeners to learn kind of, how did you get into magic? How did that show up for you?
I would say that the first recollection of magic, meaning that I could actually think about it, was when I started studying shamanism. So shamanism, nature-based spirituality, healing modality for many, one of the oldest spiritual traditions on the planet, and encompasses so many different populations. So every indigenous tribe, every person on the planet came from some kind of a shamanic culture, if you were willing to trace back to that. So magic is very much a part of that tradition. And it starts with knowing that you can be here present on the planet with or in a body, depending on your point of view. And you can also have access to information, to healing, to medicine in other realms that you can bring back and affect here. Now that, to me, is magical.
Me too. Yes.
And that's just the short answer, because so much more we can dive into.
Yeah. So, okay. So shamanism. And so you've explored that. You've explored some other different modalities, techniques, and then also your own exploration. I know you and I have had beautiful talks about earth magic, and I know some of that was through your learning, but some of that, did you kind of find that you discovered on your own through your own wondering?
Yeah, discovering more about the earth. I mean, of course, shamanism is, all nature-based, earth-based. So it's the magic that the earth is in all of its living and transitions never escapes me. Like, it's a beautiful fall day here, and the leaves are changing color, and the earth is doing its thing, getting transitioned from fall and into the winter. It's really following what it knows it needs to do, and it's rotating as it needs to do. It's, blowing as it needs to do. It's waving as it needs to do. It's on fire as it needs to do. And those kind of things always make me wonder, like, how does the earth do that? And how do we not do that anymore? Because there was a time when, human beings were really in sync with that. They were really in sync with the transitions and the cycles of nature and the earth. And we didn't really have to think about that. And when I first said, I think my first recollection was, I was kind of thinking about it. I forgot that we came from a place of where we all did this naturally and really inherently. So I guess that's really got me wondering, especially today, how can we get back to that in sync with the cycles of the earth and nature? That to me is magical.
then that's such a great question. And in sync, and also that, and I think when you say in sync, I assume that this is part of what you're talking about, but correct me if I'm wrong. It's also like really being that gifting and receiving.
Right.
Yeah. Like where we let that separate thing melt. And then as we sync up, we are part of like this transition, this flow, this kind of gifting and receiving piece. And yeah, what can people choose to activate that again, to be that again, to choose that
Right.
again?
Right. I mean, there's this concept of remembering, and it's not a cognitive thing, though. So in shamanism, they have this concept of dismembering, which is actually what they use for physical healing in bodies, where the shaman or the practitioner, and nowadays they call them shamanic practitioners. Shaman was a name that was gifted to the person in the community that did the healing. So they didn't label themselves as that. They were gifted that title. And so shamanic practitioners today know about dismemberment as a way to energetically dissolve the structure of the body in the healing space, in the other across the veil, as they call it, in the liminal space, where they dismember the energetic structure so that you could take out whatever that was ailing the physical self. And then you remember them into a state of health. And so I think that concept really applies here, that we have had this, all of us, this knowing and this syncing and this gifting and receiving with nature in that magical way. And we just need to remember it. We need to energetically refigure it so that we are that same vibration.
Yeah. Wow. You've had some pretty cool stuff show up with, we've talked about your peace lily. You've ran energy on plants and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about that, and what have you noticed when you engage with the earth and with your kind of energetic capacities?
Yeah, and so this kind of touches on what you were talking about, different modalities. So we also, you and I both do access consciousness, and we use those tools. And talking, specifically to a piece there is that there's no point of view in the world of plants or animals or creatures of the earth, And so when you gift to them, they're like, thank you. And you want some back? Not like, oh, don't do too much. I can't really handle this today. Your energy is kind of big and really fast, and I just can't really. There's none of that going on. When you're working with a plant, that just doesn't happen. And it's interesting to see that those points of view actually have come into certain shamanic circles or trainings where I had done, trainings where people had said, oh yes, gifting energy to the earth is good, but there's this one corner of my yard that doesn't really like that, and you really can't do it to there. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. A point of view that a piece of the earth would actually have a point of view about energy, So I think that's part of what keeps us from remembering that we really are part of this, is that these things that we form and these thought forms that we have, and the way that we humanize plants or animals or the earth and give them emotions and thoughts that are inherently of a human nature, and assume that that's what's happening with them. So when you go to gift to a plant, like my peace lily, we needed to have a partner for class, and I didn't have another human being there. So I actually said, hey, do you want to play? And, within a short amount of time after that class, that peace lily had like 13, 14 blooms on it. It was just so amazing. Just loved it. And traveled well here to my new house. We just recently moved, and is so happy to just be in a place that is contributing to it. And with humans, and we have a kitty that, contribute to it as well. So
I love what you said about humanizing, because I actually have a funny story. I was house sitting for my sister and taking care of her puppy, right? Mm-hmm. And the first day I'm like being very like, okay, what does he need? And just trying to, I had a puppy like ages ago, lifetimes ago. So, but then I started to treat him like a person. And I started to just talk to him and expect him to kind of like behave like at least a 12-year-old. And there was this moment where I saw the animal in him. Yeah. And I was like, whoa. And I stood back for a minute and I was like, oh my God, I forgot you're an animal. And I like actually energetically kind of apologized. And I'm like, because by humanizing him, which is kind of, it's all cutesy, whatever. But I was also disregarding like all that he is.
Right.
Yeah. And when I was like, whoa, you are an animal. And I want to acknowledge that as well. And that's a beautiful gift that I don't have to humanize him so that I can, it's almost like, how much do we want to make something like us as though that's how we can receive it, or that's how we can understand it or be with it?
Yeah. And relate to it. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm a human, so I get other humans.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, oh no, you're an animal. And that's beautiful. And then we actually like shifted into even a greater time together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
So
I love that story. That's wonderful.
So when like even okay, can we explore this a little bit? So we have like tree spirits, they communicate, they're energetic beings. Right. And where's that when you slide into like humanizing, like, oh, my tree must be sad today because its leaves are drooping.
Yeah. Well, I think the short answer to that is where we slide into that is when we forget to ask questions. Right.
Yeah.
So, and that's the basis of many modalities. So, you know that I'm a coach and, questions are based in that. Access is based in questions, so we forget to ask a question or even introduce ourselves and say, hi, I'm Julie. Nice to meet you. Can you show me who you are? And what do you need today? Do you require anything? Is there anything what can I contribute to you?
Yeah. Woo.
How's it going? What's up?
So not impelling, you must be sad today because you're drooping. Yeah. 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 That humanizing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can, they will tell us in different ways. I'm thinking of a case where a woman, so I also work in cases where people are being overshadowed by energies.
Say more.
And were pressed upon in energies. And there was a case with a woman who had very dense, heavy energy around her. And my teacher was working with her, and everybody had gone into the assumption that, oh my gosh, since it was dense and it was really heavy, that it must be bad or wrong or evil.
Yes.
That was their frame of reference, right? That was their point of view, is that this energy comes with bad things. And the gift and the beauty and the magic and the mystery of doing this work, as my teacher teaches it, she gets us to look at it with just very neutrality, but very compassionate, and just lean into that and say, hey, what's going on? And as it turns out, at the end of the technique that she was teaching us, that it was a grove of trees who had attached and kind of come into this woman's space because she had an affinity with trees. But the grove of trees had been decimated. So it had been cut down and burned down and made way for progress. And of course, it was dense and heavy. They had been there, rooted on the land for sometimes centuries.
Wow.
And then they were released. So this woman and her compassion for trees and the energy of that being around just came into her space and got really dense, really heavy. And so it wasn't some snarling, fangy, you know, we're getting close to Halloween, you know, like
it's like
bad evil monster kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was this great presence of many, many tree spirits and beings who had been their lives and those bodies had been terminated in an unnatural way. And that's what made it heavy. That's what made it dense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that, yeah, it's interesting how they can communicate to us, or they can find somebody who can be a spokesperson for that. And so then in honoring who the grove of trees were, and then honoring the woman for, being the spokesperson, it was very healing for everyone.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a gift. And it's so magical to even acknowledge that as a possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And well, that's kind of alludes to the other part of it, is that, a lot of this is a mystery tradition too, right? You never really know until you start entering into the space and being completely neutral and asking questions, what's going to show up.
Right.
That's kind of the mystery, the magic and the mystery traditions. I see those two things kind of going hand in hand.
Yeah. Yes. I love that. And when you say mystery, it's like a willingness to explore mystery, but have mystery, not answer. I need all the answers.
Right.
Yeah.
And not really worrying about getting it right. Just, it's like, did I get the right answer? I know that early on, and whenever I was coaching or doing any modalities, it'd be like, how was that for you? Like seeking the feedback, the acknowledgement that it was effective or helpful or on target, and now it's just like, wow, that could even limit it too, right? So being magical and mysterious is just being willing to show up and just be yourself in a completely neutral way. Nothing's good or bad or right or wrong.
Yeah. And that sounds like really allowing, allowing you to have your own awareness of what occurred, allowing them to have their awareness and not having to put it like into a cognitive box, which can be really limiting.
Right.
Especially magic. Like, how do you cognitize all that magic is?
You cannot.
No, it's a little impossible.
Which is one of the reasons why I've stopped talking to people in my sessions too. Mm-hmm. I get a little bit of information, then we do the work, and then I usually say something about take care of yourself, maybe do some suggestions for aftercare, but we're not going to rehash this mentally. Right. Yeah. Magic doesn't do mental.
Yeah.
No mental. Circle with a slash over it when you're doing magic, Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And it's like, really, like the more and more I explore this wacky, wonderful world, I'm opening to more awareness, which is actually less answers in conclusion. And I've had sessions with people where I've had maybe I'm having visuals, pictures, sensations going on. I'm not speaking them. At the end of the session, they'll describe something completely different, yet I'm aware both occurred.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if I were to speak, oh, well, this is what blah, 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 then it starts to create this conflict in their universe. But what if, and I would love to hear what your awareness is, what if multiple things can occur at the exact same time, even if they don't seem like they go together?
That's very true. Yes, my awareness that is possible, and that's happening all the time. And where we mess with the magic is when we start saying, well, I didn't get that, and then making myself wrong, or saying, I didn't get that. You're sure that's what you got? And making you wrong. You know what I mean? It's like, you're sure? It's not at all, yeah. Is it possible for all of that to be occurring? Yes, that's the magic. Many layers, many dimensions, many realms, many realities, whatever words you want to use, many universes. That's the magic. And that's the part of the mystery too. You're not sure how it works or why it works. We just know that it works.
Yeah. Was that easy? I think when I first kind of learned the concept of not trying to figure out the how, it was a bit of a challenge for me because I was like, no, but I want to know the how. Yeah. Was that easy for you? Like starting with that concept, or is it easy for you now? Like, how did that show up for you?
Well, yeah, it was hard at first. And I think it is for most people, because if they start on this journey of working energetically, anytime after, I don't know, sometime in elementary school, maybe 7 or 8 years old, they're starting to go more into their brain than, they're starting to go mental more than they are going energetic. And so I think that we have to unlearn that, or remember that we are really energetic first. And so, yeah, it takes, and there's also part of, like, when you do learning, how we've been conditioned to learn is to get the right answers. I mean, a lot of what school is about is going to school, learning stuff, and then taking a test and then passing the test. So you have to get right answers, so I think we get into that. You start getting conditioned there, and you're like, well, is this right? Or what's, and then you go on these, soul searching journeys, and you still want to get that right, and then you get in a group and you do whatever exercise, and then you share, and then you're going, oh, they got all that, or they saw this, and I don't know how did I do that? And so you're taking mad notes, right? Fast, furious, like, oh, I got to get this right. And so it is a journey. And I would just offer to everybody, you don't have to go on this long, elongated trek like I did. You can actually just remember that you are an energetic being and go with that sense of what's around you. Like if you're walking down the street and you stop for a minute and you're by a little bush, maybe that's where you need to be for just 30 to 60 seconds.
Yeah.
And just recharge. Yeah.
Oh, and that's so beautiful, because many reasons, but I felt as I've developed my own, and I'm still developing, like I'm always like more. I just want to learn more. I want to, grow my capacities with energy, with magic. Some of the greatest leaps in my capacities expanding has been in the exploration. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to try and do this thing right now. It's like, it just shows up, and I'm leading in, I'm exploring it. And people have said, well, how did you know to do that? Like, how did you know? And there's two things showing up. One, in a way, I didn't cognitively know, like I didn't have, but it is the remembering energy you keep bringing in. It's a remembering of something that I am, but also stepping into something new at the same time. And that I knew I would have gotten to that place if I was constantly trying to do that mental work, if I was constantly trying to do it right. And so for me, exploring magic, part of the greatest gift I ever gave myself, I think, was not trying to get it right, and really just going, I'm going to just trust that I know something, and I'm going to explore it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Precisely. Yeah. And trusting that, if you can build that muscle, and that will serve everybody well if they can just start trusting that. So I would add to that, because that's great, enlisting your body in it. So, your body, the vehicle, can give you information too. And it's often, stuff like that I've had the sensation of walking down the street and wanting to go this way, or driving and then having my head pulled, like, look here. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, I'm going this way. How come I'm over here? Well, that's my body saying there's something over here that you need to see, or giving you an idea of, again, like stopping by a bush, you're like, what's this little thing? Oh, here, well, just, you need to be here for just a minute. And can you just trust that and
Yeah.
have it be okay?
Yeah.
That you're not finishing your walk on time, that you're taking 30 seconds to do this. And the neighbors are peering at you going, what are they doing out there? Why are they stopped in front of my little bush? Like, are you willing to like receive all of that?
Yeah.
Because your body was giving you information too. So yeah, the being and the body together. And talk about magic.
Yeah. Is there
Probably talk about another time.
should we go into it? Should we
I know, sorry.
Oh, it's so good. What, Julie, for you, that trust place, like how did you arrive at that? Like, what were some of the choices or the things that showed up for you to allow you to get to the place where, okay, I'm going to trust that?
Yeah. I've always been somebody to choose things that are fun. And they take me on adventures. Like, for example, in high school, I was an exchange student and I lived in Denmark for a year. And it just sounded like fun. And while it had its challenges and I had to learn a new language and, all of those things that I was thinking about, like, what did I do? It was still fun, like I learned so much. So I would say, follow the fun and then look for the wisdom, I'll just call it, in every event that you experience. So whether you're experiencing something that is like an award, you get an award and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm being recognized for my expertise, or, so receive that and receive the wisdom from that too. What you can take away from that. Everything from that stuff to the things that are not considered great. So that we've experienced a lot of loss and change in our family. And so it would be easy to say, this sucks. I just want to get through this or over this or under this before it gets on top of me and buries me, or I just got to get out of this. But there's also wisdom in that. There's wisdom and peace and knowledge and learning and experience to be gained from that. So that's how you learn how to trust, is just to experience it all.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Let it all in. Just don't filter out because it's all part of the plan. All part of what you're here for.
Very cool. Yeah. And I think that's part of like that exploration of magic, is to be willing to perceive what's actually going on, being willing to, I just saw this really cool video before we came on. My friend John Ashford sent it to me. And this guy says, he's like, once you have the magic glasses on, he goes, you won't see what you're supposed to see. You will see what actually is.
Yeah. There you go.
That. Yeah.
Yep. I'll have that too.
Yeah. You have these beautiful glasses on.
I know. I'll just calibrate my glasses right now. That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I feel like there's so much we could talk about, and I know the show's coming to an end here, but maybe we'll have you on to talk more about bodies. But was there anything specific? It's the month of magic. We're talking about magic with bodies. Is there a little bit more we could just give people to? I really love for people to leave the show and be able to go implement something, explore something, practice something. Yeah. So what can we invite them to play with?
So I would invite them to play with any kind of transition. And if you're not sure what, it's a lot of seasons are changing right now. So wherever you're located on the planet, it's likely that there's some kind of seasonal change on the earth right now. So if you're not sure what transition to pick, do that. Go out on the land somewhere, or in the forest, or at the beach, and just be really present with and notice as things change. Is the light changing? Is the air changing? Are the waves changing? Are the sounds changing? Be present with that, because then breathe that in. Breathe that in and perceive all of that.
I love that. I love that.
There's a lot of magic in transitions.
Yeah. Well, what's also cool about that invitation that you just gave them is what I've noticed for myself is that the earth and nature will acknowledge my own magic.
Yeah.
So when I'm in that space and I'm being present and I'm just like perceiving and acknowledging, it will show me something. Something will shift. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, the wind blows up, right? And like all the leaves, and you're just like, whoa, just happened. Or the ocean waves start getting big. And then it's kind of, what if we could also receive that acknowledgement from the earth? Hey, you're a magical being. You're a magical body. Yeah.
Yeah. Love that.
I love you.
I receive that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. If any of you want more with Julie O, please check out the description below. You can choose a session with her. She's got lots of stuff going on. Check her out, and we'll see you on the next show. Thanks, Julie. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for exploring the curious universe with me. Your curiosity matters. And what if together we could create a greater, more curious world?